What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Onyx Report, Black Masculinist news for the day. Hope you guys are well. Yeah. What's up, electrician? How you doing? Yeah, got a few things to get into. Hope you guys had a good Tuesday. It's my first teaching day of the week. So I made it through that and just got one more. So you know what it is. Like, share, subscribe, join, donate. Please support the channel if you would. You see how to do that on the screen. You have the various options there from, of course, YouTube, Super Chat. You can do it through Patreon, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. Y'all know what it is. Please support. What's up, Indigo? Gabriel, what's going on? Hope everybody's well. So, a couple things. First off, I want to, if anything, I want to start by acknowledging something that I ran across that I wanted to shout out. I don't know how many of you may have seen this, but you can find this one on blackenterprise.com. And it is, a very interesting piece that pertains to the primary base of my listenership. Came out yesterday, right? Said the entertainer Steve Harvey showed lots of brotherly love at Robert F. Smith's mobile prostate cancer screening bus launch. Now, here's the thing. The celebrity thing is cool. If it gets it attention, that's what it's for. I hope it works. It's not why I call attention to it. Call attention to it because Black men and prostate cancer, unfortunately, seem to go hand in hand. We seem to get it at higher rates than other groups. Nobody seems to fully understand why. But at the end of the day, I am a strong advocate of us getting checked out. It is something that can easily slip your mind, but make sure you get screened, check, make sure you're good, because this can sneak up on you. And if it's caught with a certain amount of time, early on, you can actually, you can deal with it. You wait too long, it's a whole nother problem. So I'll read through a little bit of this, but again, I'm not really tripping on the celebrity portion. I'm just really focusing on the benefits of calling attention to it. So it says in the opening of National Minority Health Awareness Month, businessman, hold on, let me get this together now. All right. And philanthropist Robert F. Smith launched the Mount Sinai Robert F. Smith mobile prostate cancer screening bus on April 1st in Harlem. According to a press release, the purposeful event, which signifies a commitment to enabling early detection of prostate cancer for at-risk Black men, reunited some of Smith's high-profile Black male celebrity friends and local medical experts to mark the occasion. The launch of the screening bus was made possible through a $3.8 million donation Smith made in February 2021 to Mount Sinai's Milton and Carole Petrie Department of Urology. As a community, we have faced and still do face a fair number of disparities in resources, access, and information, Smith said in his speech at the launch on Friday. According to Essence, it's important that we, which is why I brought all these beautiful Black men here to support what we do, educate each other and bring resources to bear to help our community, not just to survive, but thrive. You know what I'm saying? So straight up, shout out to Robert Smith, but more importantly, y'all make sure you take this seriously for the brothers who are listening and get checked out. This is not something that we want to let slip by us. And this is the kind of thing that tends to do that very thing. Shout out to Prince Johnny. What's up? Caleb. Ghetto User. What's up? C Truth. South Shaolin. Mr. Anderson. Hybrid Ninjas. What's going on, Hybrid? Jay Cleveland. What's up? Got some of the brothers in here. 51 watching. Like, share, subscribe, join, and donate. Please support the channel. So we're talking today about when women use structures to diminish Black males. And this is an intra-racial conversation, right? We're talking about within the Black community. So this is an intra-racial issue because it is something that needs to be dealt with. And as soon as you call attention to it publicly, there's all kinds of shaming language, dismissal, that comes about because you're talked about as being either anti-Black community or sexist, right? That seems to be the framework. What's up, Donnie? What's up, Ray? What's going on? Yeah, those are the dominant, shaming and dismissive tactics used to invalidate what we're talking about. But see, this is the thing. I don't care if you're the hardest core nationalist or if you're a conservative that still loves and wants to see the Black community improve. It cannot, at any strategy, any ideological strategy you have, cannot move forward if we're going to continue to dismiss, downplay, or ignore the misandry toward Black men that I believe has become a staple in the Black community. Can't be done. I'm going to give you a couple of examples, and these are examples that have run across my desk in the last 24 hours, and in one way or another. So, that being said, let's check it out. What's up, Micah? Good to see you in here as usual. Good to have you. All right. So, let me go ahead and pull this up. All right. So this is and just to kind of give it framework, this is what I meant when I started using the term colonizing agents in regard to a very distinct group of Black women, usually white collar, usually college educated, that are able to work in certain positions where they are able to further, um, you know, uh, underdevelop Black males in their spaces, and they're incentivized to do so. Offered career advancement, offered promotion, offered, of course, resources, money, so on and so forth. And this applies across a wide span of occupations, regions, geography. It's almost just part and parcel to class advancement. For a certain Black and especially Black female intelligentsia, it is what it is. This is why I call that particular group colonizing agents. Whether they know it or not, it has everything to do with how they've been trained, and much of this is facilitated through higher education. Right? But I'm gonna give you a few examples of how this can play out, and they're kind of random examples, but that's purposeful because I want you to see how widespread it is. Right? So, first one on the docket. Now, this is coming from Yahoo.com, and this is a general article about people confessing the incident that got their teachers fired, and my jaw is on the floor. That's the title of it. Now, I want to be clear. The story I'm about to read, if I remember correctly, it doesn't actually control for race. I'm not reading the story itself as the example. It's the co-signing by Black men on my Facebook page and who've written me in my DMs since I posted it, talking about their experiences growing up, most particularly with Black women teachers. And again, if we can't talk about this and it just continues to happen, how constructive is that? And if the only way we're framed for talking about it is, as sexist or whatever, then that just puts you in a very unproductive space, because now we can't get to the next step of dealing with it because we're not supposed to. But anyway, let's get to it. So as you can see, there's a number of pieces on here, and they're random stories, but it's the first one that was sent to me actually by a brother, and it got to me. And of course, I've had experiences with this. My son has dealt with it to some extent, but especially the men that have written in. So here we go. It says a lot of the stories people responded with were more shocking and disappointing than you can imagine. Take a look for yourself. This is the first story. She got busted giving different grades to boys and girls. This was my 6th and 7th grade civics and social studies teacher. For some context, I always got good grades in school. I'm a good test taker, and I always worked hard to make sure my GPA was as high as I could get it. Her classes were like brick walls to me, though. I could never get better than a C. By the time 8th grade rolled around, several other students, along with myself, had a feeling she was grading the girls differently than the boys, since all the girls seemed to breeze through her classes while all the boys struggled. A couple of years later, a group of kids got suspicious as well as, got suspicious as well, and set her up in a sting on an essay assignment. Basically, they all wrote the same essay but worded differently. The girls got A's and the boys got C's and D's. The group reprinted their papers, took their names off the papers, and took them to the headmaster to grade them. He gave all the essays either high B's or low A's, saying they were essentially the same essay with different phrasing. They then showed him the original essays with their grades. She was asked to resign at the end of that term. I'm saying, yeah. Now, when I put that story up, of course, I gave it a little bit of commentary. One of the things I said, y'all be thinking I'm playing, but this is the kind of stuff that doesn't exactly get published in academic journals. And by the way, it doesn't stop in school. I've had managers, employers, professors in graduate and undergraduate school, assigned mentors, deans, etc., who felt Black men just shouldn't be wherever I was. And these are the kind of stories that Black men started to write in on the page itself and in private, DMing me about teachers' experiences they had going back to first grade, kindergarten, sometimes preschool, all the way through graduate school. And graduate school, Black men in graduate school have been, man, they've been reaching out to me for the last 6, 7 years, talking to me about the kind of roadblocks that they're getting in their graduate programs. Because if they want to deal with gender, they most often have to deal with Black feminist professors. And that seems to be their biggest roadblock. Now, I've served on probably about 4 dissertation committees at this point, and my sole purpose in being there was really to provide cover, ideological, informational, professional level cover on their committees so that they didn't get lambasted and disappeared from their programs, which some of the brothers who reached out to me had already experienced. Right? But it's the same dynamic as what I just got through reading. It just happens in different environments. And as I said, it's not limited to one context. But this is also why I say colonizing agents is the framework. Right? This woman clearly had a bias for women. There was a subscriber who wrote a comment on one of my videos probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and he talked about sharing my videos with one of his former professors. And she said, I guess she watched like a quick second of it or whatever, and then dismissed it. She said, I'm not watching this. As far as I'm concerned, Black girls are too disadvantaged. And he wasn't in a position to really kind of question her. But at the end of the day, in almost every relevant context, at least that I can think of, the disadvantage is, especially when you're talking about girls and boys in K through 12, the disadvantage is overwhelmingly boys. They hold the majority of the disadvantage. But those are the kind of teachers that would engage in this kind of behavior. And in many respects, Black boys can actually get to a point where you become used to this. I know I did. I almost began to expect it. And it wasn't until I had my first Black male teacher, which by the way, wasn't until like my junior year of undergrad, that I actually got to see what it was like to have a Black male in a position of authority in the academy validate me and highlight what I was doing well, what I can improve on, but doing so from a place of authentic care and investment. I had not experienced that before. Whole different feeling to have teachers that actually have faith in your abilities as a Black male, especially when it's coming from a Black male. Powerful, profound feeling. And he had a group of us that protected him like nobody's business because we had not experienced that before. And he was attacked. And we were on it. But the point I'm getting at here is that there is a kind of systemic incentivization behind, these kinds of teachers that I just got through reading about, who will happily misjudge boys, particularly Black boys, on everything from behavior to academic performance. But if you actually were able to take their work and strip the names off it, much of the time you'll see a profound difference in how that grading would take place. Black boys tend to get punished, especially when it comes to grading, but this happens in the workplace as adults too. It's just, we obviously don't call it grading. That's where you get performance reviews. That's how that shit comes at you when you're grown. Performance reviews. That's where revenge and those kind of tactics can actually take place as a way of degrading and diminishing Black male positions and making it that much more difficult to rise. Right? These are the kind of environments that we deal with. So I wanted to point that out because that's one of the experiences that we don't talk about. See, there was a time in the 60s and 70s where you had a different kind of dynamic, right? You had these teachers that didn't make it easy on you just because they were Black and you were Black. You had to work harder. You had to go through that dynamic. But you also had teachers that, that really exhibited a certain level of care. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that we defined Blackness far more communally. But I think people drastically underestimate how much blackness is defined now in relation to gender. It's not something people think to say until they talk about gender, but it is something they act upon. And a lot of this, again, is incentivized by resources that we don't control. I want to be clear. When I talk about Black women as colonizing agents, they don't have control over the institutions. They're set there. They're assigned to positions, gatekeeping positions, or what you might call vice regents, if you've never heard that term before. Right? They serve as vice regents, deputy regents, a person who acts in the place of a ruler, governor, or sovereign. Right? This is the position that many Black women are assigned to. And a lot of this is framed through education. Right? They serve as colonizing agents for white supremacy, but and in the Black community only, really. And a lot of that is facilitated through educational titles, white collar employment, promotion, so on and so forth. But these are not structures they created. These are structures that they've been given authority over. And often they will prioritize themselves as girls and women. And they will downplay and underdevelop the boys. So we'll go through a few other examples. I don't mean to get too far away from the comments. I know you guys have been rolling. What's up, Tim? Good to see you in here. Hope I didn't miss anything. What's up, Ian? Appreciate the support as usual. Ian dropping information in there. Yeah. So anyway, continuing on. So let's look at the next one. All right. So y'all got this. And I know brothers in the comments are already going to have stories about their experiences as students in that environment. But here it is. So here's the next one. As I said, fairly random, but it applies in a number of different areas. Now, this one has to do with entrepreneurship. This is businessinsider.com. And the title of this one came out about 10 hours ago is Black Americans Represent the Fastest Rising Class of Business Owners. Here's how the 15% pledge aims to help Black entrepreneurs generate $1.4 trillion. Now, let's be clear. You look at the image, that's how they're defining Black entrepreneurs. Notice anything missing? Okay. I'm not going to go through all of this. I will put the links to all of these in the description so you can read through the articles themselves. But I do want to take you to a couple of key areas. So they say in general, from February 2020 to August 2021, the number of Black entrepreneurs in the U.S. increased by 38%. Right now, this is not because everybody just woke up and decided to be business owners. A lot of this is because people were losing jobs. A lot of this had to do with even folks leaving racist environments and trying to use what they knew how to do in their own spaces. But generally, we start businesses with no capital, usually very little to none. 99% of Black women-owned businesses have one employee. I mean, that is what it is. And that's not going to be said here because, they want to provide this celebratory space, but that's the reality of Black entrepreneurship. However, you do have more Black male entrepreneurs than Black female. And we talked about that last year. But strangely enough, there's never a mention of that. What you hear most regularly is that Black women are the fastest growing population. They're starting businesses at a faster rate than any other demographic. But actually, Black men are entrepreneurs in greater numbers, But most of the focus on funding entrepreneurship in the Black community, especially over this last 2 years, has primarily been, gynocentric. Right. So I'll read this portion because this is a section of the article. A focus on Black female entrepreneurs. Have y'all heard of focus on Black male entrepreneurs ever? Every article I run across that's talking about a new financial, supportive measure for entrepreneurship is always focusing on Black female entrepreneurs, as if Black men don't own any businesses whatsoever. Black female entrepreneurs in particular need support and a seat at the wealth building table, Williams Belford said. 2021 report from the Harvard Business Review found that while 17% of Black women in the U.S. were starting or operating new businesses, compared with 10% of white women and 15% of white men, only 3% were running mature companies. Now notice, there was never any mention of Black men there. Not how many businesses they're running, not how much capital they're working with, not what size their businesses are. No mention of black men whatsoever. The report hypothesized that access to capital could dictate which types of businesses black women launch, and that without vital funds, they lean toward creating businesses with low margins in crowded and competitive markets. Before 2021, only 93 black women had raised 1 million or more in venture capital, according to Project Diane, a biennial report on the state of Latina and black women founders by the organization Digital Undivided. Additionally, it found that Latina and black women founders received a small percentage of the 166 billion in VC funding raised in 2020. No mention of black males. They either talk about black entrepreneurship or black women. After the murder of George Floyd, many venture capitals committed to increasing capital for black entrepreneurs, but even with those promises, black entrepreneurs received 1.3% of the venture capital raised last year, Axios reported in February. Now that is incredibly interesting because this is going to keep coming up tonight. The monetization, both in the nonprofit realm and the entrepreneurial realm, of black male death. What I call black andromortality. Yeah. So they're talking about George Floyd only because it has served as a platform to rationalize increasing the resources that should be extended to black women entrepreneurs. Does that not sound problematic to anybody? How the fuck do black men die? But there's no conversation about black male entrepreneurship. If you're going to have a talk about some type of justice measure, some type of reparative gesture being made to make sure that black entrepreneurs or black students or black nonprofits or black, whatever, should have an equal shot at opportunity, should there not be some discussion that maybe the demographic that represented, or, when you talk about George Floyd, it comes from a long list of black men who were killed. Should then there be some discussion about black men? No, because BLM laid out the framework and the bait and switch that the only relevant discussion after the death of black men post 2015 should be the upliftment of black women. And see, here's the thing. I'm not opposed to black women being uplifted, but I am opposed to black women being uplifted at the expense of black men, at the cost of black male blood, and yet nobody gives a fuck. I have a problem with that. So why did I pose this article? And we're talking about the underdevelopment and diminishment of black males. Because this article, although not necessarily written by black women, is dealing with the issue of the bait and switch, the issue of prioritizing the advancement, the class advancement of black women at the expense of black male death. And here's my problem. Even though I know that black women, even if it was a black woman that wrote the article, she's an employee at Business Insider. But here's the thing. In the last couple of years, since we've been hearing about this increased support for entrepreneurship to keep mom and pop shops from closing down, all the way to venture capitalism, all this conversation in the last couple of years about supporting black women, all the billions of dollars that have been earmarked or given outright to black women, how many of those black women have organized around the absence of attention toward black males, most particularly the black males whose deaths are the cause of this whole new push to advance black women? Don't worry, I'll wait. Back of the classroom, appreciate that support. Andrew, appreciate that support. It is much appreciated. Y'all like, share, subscribe, join, donate, support the channel so we can keep this going. Because at the end of the day, I'm just trying to raise questions that hopefully get us thinking out, while at the same time we develop the conceptual lenses we need to make sense of what's been going on. Because people have been pissing on us, telling us it's rain, and we have bought it. Now, there are individuals that never bought it, but as a collective of black men, I did not hear prior to it, maybe 5-6 years ago, the kinds of conversations where black men were pushing back against this shit. I didn't hear it. Rick, appreciate that support, man. And it's long past time. We could have had this conversation decades ago, but we're just now starting to have it now. And of course, we're getting the shaming language. Of course, we're hearing, and I'll have it happen here. The black women will come up in the comments, and it's really interesting. They'll come into a space where black men are talking to mommy us into silence and tell us how we're not really seeing what we're seeing. In other words, piss is rainwater. That's what we're told. I've watched this for years. They'll come in and write about how you're not really seeing what you're seeing. You're making a mistake. No, we need to keep talking about white supremacy. Trust me, baby, I am. I ain't never stopped talking about it. I just noticed that it's happening in a way that's not easily identifiable. And this is what's been at the heart of such conflict in the last few years on how to frame this, because, many black men know that these kind of things are happening, but we are at a loss in many respects on what to do about it. So some of us are outright about what the issues are. Some of us white knight it and try to come in and argue strictly, to the benefit of black women simply because the conversation is happening. And it's not that those guys don't recognize what's happening. But we've all been trained in a particular way. You don't contradict mama. And that's what we do. Appreciate that support, Coblin, as well as Rob. And here's the thing, I'm not necessarily saying you got to leave the community, but I am saying at the end of the day, if there's going to be a community, this needs to be addressed. And if there's not going to be a community, black men are still going to be treated a certain way in a system. And black men have to operate in a manner that is strategically useful for the group. Because there's not going to be a day where people stop seeing us as black men. Shit is not going to happen. So we have to actually be able to look at what's going on, make sense of it, and move on it. So this is the second piece. So we're looking at the absence of black male entrepreneurship, the absence of attention toward the value of black males, and of course, the absence of a voice from the group that is getting so much attention. So again, whether we're talking about Goldman Sachs, Visa, MasterCard, Google, and a number of other programs, and I talked about this extensively last night with BGS, we've heard no outcry from the sisters on this. The only outcry we've heard is the limited dating options that they have in terms of finding men with parity. And when they do find men with parity, how those men are so stuck up that they don't give them a chance, or that they all want white women, whatever the deflective terms are that don't allow for any type of group accountability, where black women actually have to address their behavior and so on and so forth. But more than behavior, where black women have to address the way they've been socially trained to perceive black males, even within families, as the floor under their feet, as the irrelevance, as the white noise in the background, as it were. Right? This is what we're talking about. So this article is a clear example of that. Right? But there are more. Let's look at this one. This one came out in dailymail.co.uk. Black Lives Matter secretly used $6 million in donations to buy a luxurious 6,500 square foot mansion with 7 bedrooms and parking for 20 cars in Southern California in 2020, where leaders have filmed YouTube videos. You don't get the fuck out of here with this. Black Lives Matter brass secretly used $6 million in donation money to buy 6,500 square foot mansion in Southern California. Emails show the firm wanted to keep the purchase secret despite filming a video on the home's patio in May. The news comes as the foundation faces federal scrutiny for alleged misuse of donated funds and comes on heels of criticism of co-founder Patrisse Cullors. Cullors, 38, came under fire last year for a slew of high-profile property purchases. She resigned after facing backlash from critics and supporters. So they buying fucking mansions off black male death. And it's funny because, one of the things we've been hearing since the 70s, at least if you've been in, higher education, particularly graduate school, right, is that the legacy of black male chauvinism and sexism is such that it's time for black women to take over. Black men need to be quiet and take the back, or at least heterosexual men need to be quiet and take a following role to make up for historical inequities Although when you talk to many of the women that were active in the 60s and the 70s, they paint a different picture, but nevertheless, that's the going narrative right now. Like heterosexual black men need to shut up, take a supportive role, let the women lead. But you can't critique mama. So when this kind of shit happens, you're supposed to be quiet. Yep. BLM brass, right? Patrice Cullors, Alicia Garza, LA faction founder Melina Abdullah allegedly laid out $6 million to buy a 6,500 square foot Southern California mansion. White cloth tablecloths, glasses of wine, very relaxed. And they described this space as a kind of a retreat space. Documents and internal communications reportedly reveal the luxury property was handled in ways that blur boundaries between charitable use and those that would benefit some of the organization's leaders, including Cullors, who shared video in June of her enjoying a ritzy brunch outside the estate with fellow officials Alicia Garza and Melina Abdullah, who have both since left the organization. Everybody's jumping ship, right? 7-bedroom estate was purchased by a man named Dane, I think it's Dane Pascal, 2 weeks after BLM received $66.5 million from its fiscal sponsor in October 2020. Pascal is the financial manager for Janaya and Patrice Consulting, an LLC operated by Cullors and her spouse, Janaya Khan. New York Magazine reported. Within a week of the purchase, ownership was subsequently transferred to an LLC in Delaware, ensuring the property's owner wouldn't be disclosed, the outlet said. It's not clear what purpose the mansion, reportedly dubbed campus in internal emails sent to BLM brass, was meant to serve for the foundation. This is the shit. Look, you got families that can't afford to bury their slain kids. You got black men, being dropped like flies left and right. And the priority is luxury housing. This bullshit. Mm. When the foundation of luxury is black male blood, and it has been for some centuries, but this is such a blatant display. But okay, so let's say this. We're aware of how COINTELPRO has functioned, particularly in the early 70s. I'm not one to believe that it's just disappeared because everybody woke up and became more moral. But at the same time, many of us had problems with this BLM model as far back as 2015. The model in and of itself prioritized the same group that I'm talking about, group that I call colonizing agents, highly educated, white collar, black women, trained in colleges, and in many ways raised in a gynocratic framework that prioritized black women over black males. I should say black females over black males in general. We talked about this in family. We talked about this in black culture, the downplaying of the importance of boys, the mommying, right? All of this kind of narrative that placed boys on a secondary tier as second-class family members. The lack of investment or confidence in boys. And there's actually data we presented on the show around the impact of mothers' lack of confidence on their boys and how those boys are performed or how they perform in school, so on and so forth. Of course, when you have that discussion, what tends to happen is an overly dismissive kind of response that, goes back to the old trope of, black men just abandoning families. That's a very comfortable narrative. But one of the things we started to push back against with that narrative are the ways in which black men are often chased off using the same institutions we're talking about. So whether it's teachers who are using their authority to downplay boys' performance, black boys in particular, whether it's entrepreneurial options, whether it's the list of resources for underclass women or middle-class women that I talked about last night, you have resources that are in the hands of black women that are not extended to black men. And those same black women who are looking for parity in men are not going out their way to provide it through the resources they do have some control over. and the boys and men continue to fall behind. And even when you have an organization like this that has billions at its disposal, how much of it went to policies that actually directly deal with the black men that are being killed that started the goddamn organization in the first place? The very brothers that are being killed couldn't even have leadership positions in the fucking organization, but you're going to tell me that they're going to be sitting up in a mansion drinking wine? And there's a part of me that wants to take a baseball bat to my whole fucking office right now. Shit just, especially when I think about, shout out to Mike and Expansion Wiring for the Cash Apps. Appreciate the support. But especially when I think about how much shaming I heard in the last 7 years toward black men. You guys aren't in the streets like we are. You're not supporting. And I've had brother after brother reach out to me like, these women are tripping, calling black men cowards, all kinds of, and I'm just like, but this is the measure of activism? Word. Okay. Protesting, getting billions, buying mansions. Right. Okay. And this is not to activism as a whole. And I want to differentiate that. There's been a long tradition of activism going back to enslavement that I honor. But some of this corrosive, exploitive shit at the expense of black male life, I can't support. So, man, I'm so pissed. I'm trying to keep my train of thought, man, because man, this is infuriating. You can't even, not only can you not question black women in terms of their organizational work, you can't even question them individually, right? Even in this last week with the whole, Jada bullshit that, that everybody's been talking about. You know how many black women I've seen that said you can't critique black women, that protected her simply because she was a black woman? There was no critique allowed to be had of her, not just that night or before, because you can't. So even when you have situations like this, and I want you to see this, if you haven't seen this article, this is on 2fab.com, dated yesterday. Title reads, 5-year-old dies as mom kidnaps her at knife point and crashes into pond, fleeing police. Look at that, baby. But I want you to hear this. Right? Family are asking people not to judge the mother. That is the first line of the goddamn article. The first line. You don't even know that baby's name yet. And the first line in the article is that the family are asking people not to judge the mother. Okay. All right. Let's flip it. You got a father that kidnaps his daughter by knife point, gets her killed by driving into a pond. We critiquing black men? See, what would happen is there would be half a second spent on him as an individual, and the rest of the discussion would be about black men as reflected through him as an individual. Now, I'm not talking about black mothers. I'm not even talking about this black mother. The reason I raised this article is to point out how you're not allowed to. This is what I started this video tonight talking about. You're not allowed to critique black women. I haven't even offered the critique yet, but you're not allowed to do it, regardless of what's done. The first freaking sentence in the article: 5-year-old girl has died after a high-speed chase with Florida police ended at the bottom of a pond. Pamela Cabrera, 32, is accused of vehicular homicide after an attempt to kidnap her own daughter. Vanity ended in tragedy. Thursday evening, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office responded to a call about a kidnapping in the progress of the north side of the city. En route to the scene, an officer spotted the suspect's vehicle stopped at a traffic light and attempted to pull it over, but the woman sped off. High-speed chase along the I-95 ensued, reaching speeds of 90 miles an hour as officers followed for more than 30 miles. But as the suspect was exiting at 9B, she went straight off the ramp and into a retention pond Several officers immediately removed their gear and dived into the water and were able to bring the suspect to the bank, but there was no sign of vanity. Dive teams later recovered the child's body at the bottom of the pond. She was outside of the vehicle. God damn. Cause of death has not been confirmed. Cabrera was booked on charges of vehicular homicide, fleeing law enforcement at high speed, 2 battery charges. Court records show Cabrera has a history of mental illness, including schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, according to the outlet. The Department of Children and Families granted custody of the child to her aunt, Cabrera's sister, in April 2020. She has faced criminal battery charges before, including an arrest for spitting at an officer. At least one case was dismissed due to her mental illness. The bereaved family are asking police not to judge the mother. Pamela wasn't a bad person. Her cousin Solange, who was previously granted temporary custody of Vanity, told First Coast News, she just needs help, and she didn't get the help she needed from the government. She wasn't a bad person. We tried to look for help plenty of times, and we called police plenty of times to help her. We took her to a psychologist, and Pamela just needed help. How the fuck is she and what her needs are the priority in this article? Look at that baby. How the hell is she not the subject of the fucking article? At this point, I need to know what her favorite color was, what she used to like to do. I mean, just out of respect for the baby. Tell us something about her. They mentioned her name. And all the rest was about defending the mother from critique. It's strangely reminiscent of something my colleague, Dr. Tommy Curry, said once. And I've quoted it several times. If you're a longtime listener, you know it. The attempt to make attention outweigh death. This article is a direct reflection of that sentiment. This baby can't get a sentence in the fucking article about her. What toys did she like? What did she like to read? Or what did she like to study in school? We got nothing but her name. Because it's so much more important that we protect the mother. This is some bullshit. Oh, man. So, solutions. Black men need to respond on at least 3 levels. And there can be more. I'm not saying there shouldn't be, but at least 3. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Shout out to Master Who. Appreciate that support. Christopher, appreciate that. Appreciate that sentiment, Christopher. Rob, yeah, thank you. So 3 levels. First, personally, and y'all know I talk about male relationship emotional labor. We need to be far more particular and intent and purposeful as far as who we decide to provide emotional labor for. We need to remember that despite how we were taught that any woman walking around you should deserve your life, let alone your emotional labor, hell no. You decide who to give it to and who to withdraw it from. There's a video that came out yesterday. I'm not going to play it, but I think you should check it out. It's here on YouTube. It's called Wake Up with Dee. It is an interview of the comedian Earthquake. And yes, it is yet another talking about the slapping incident. And I really am tired of the incident itself. But the only reason I raise it is because Earthquake dropped some gems. And one of the things he talked about in this, and he dropped a couple. But one of the gems he dropped was the extent to which Jada does not actually love Will based on her behavior, right? I think Valdez was talking about that earlier today too, but he talked about it. He broke down her behavior. And in response, I mean, the way he said it and the way he laid it out was so well done. I had to write this up, and I put this on Facebook. I put it on Twitter. I put it on Instagram. And shit. Here. This is what I wrote. I said, I wish this didn't have to be another Will and Jada article, but the message was too necessary not to share. On being with a woman who doesn't love you, and trust me, fellas, I've been there. right? This is real talk for men. As much as it may rip your heart out, know when to walk away. You can't prove yourself enough, convince someone enough, perform yourself into making someone love you or give you genuine desire. You can't do it. She either has it for you or she doesn't. And even though since the 80s, we were told that if you approached her with the perfect game, earned enough money, looked the right way, you were tall enough, you were dressed well enough, you took her to the right places enough, you knew enough of the right people, had the right amount of ambition and status, had enough degrees, owned the right car, had the right apartment slash house located in the right area, practiced the right religion to the right level of intensity, fought white supremacy enough, and had the perfect sex game, it would somehow guarantee her love, affection, and loyalty. None of that can make her love you. The right man has to have little to none of that to secure her heart, while the wrong one can have it all and get nothing but contempt and disdain. For the love of your sanity and well-being, men, Black men, please learn to walk away. Now, that could be a literal walking away, or that could be the withdrawal of your emotional labor. But what I'm trying to say is we have to move past this point where we serve simply because we're told to serve. It's time to move past that, fellas. It's time to move past the one-way framework of her telling you what you need to give her and what you need to just be happy with, whatever she chooses to give you. So again, in terms of the response to this diminishment, this underdevelopment of Black men, it needs to operate on three planes. The first plane is personal. And this is why I read that portion, because I'm saying we need to actually take control of our emotional labor and withdraw it when appropriate. That's the first. The second one is in terms of work. In this last 2 weeks, I've had about 4 brothers reach out to me, all of whom work in spaces advocating for Black boys. Some are schools, some are detention centers, there are all kinds of spaces. And they're finding that they are overwhelmed, not with working with the boys, but fighting administratively with Black women who are in positions of authority above them, who are limiting access to resources, stymieing their efforts simply because they're Black men. Using degrees as the line of difference in terms of treatment and career advancement. 3 or 4 just in the last 2 weeks. One today, as a matter of fact, who talked at length about the culture of his workplace, where the women are there and the overwhelming majority of them, nearly 100%, have college degrees. None of them have any particular training on working with boys, Black boys at that. But they're in positions of authority and they only give access to upward mobility to each other. Very limited in consulting Black men on what they're doing, regardless of the results. There's no assumption, there's no belief that Black men themselves might have something to add about what will help improve these boys' lives. And yet blocking Black men at every turn who have something to contribute on the matter. Right? So part of the solution is that you have to agitate and actually advocate in the spaces that you're in, whether it's at work, whether you're coaching a team, whatever you're doing, where you are in constant contact with Black boys or men, finding ways to advocate for them when no one else will. That's the second response we need to have. To use the resources available to you. Why do you think we do this show? I got 21,000 subscribers. I'm not 1.5 million. I'm not buying mansions with YouTube money. That's not what's happening here. I'm one of a few who are trying to help create the resources, the perspectives, the vocabulary terms, the concepts, introducing you to the works of others who've been doing this work in hopes that you can take this information and use it to advocate for Black men and boys in whatever space you're in, to whatever degree you can. I posted a symposium on my institute website this past weekend that deals with Black male politics as the solution. You do have to pay for the symposium, but 99% of the stuff I put out online is free. Even on the institute website, it's free. I have 1 class and 3 symposiums on the website that are that you have to pay for. Short of that, everything else is pretty much free. except for the occasional request for donation support. But obviously, I'm not about to turn the show off if you don't support. So I'm clearly interested in something beyond making this paper. I believe you should get paid for what you do. I believe you should make your money. I got a son to put in college. I ain't, I'd like to do that. But here's the thing. My first priority is the upliftment of Black men and boys. That's the first one. And I'm not doing this shit for entertainment's sake, because I'm not an entertainer. There's far more people you can go watch that are far more charismatic and funny. I'm not much of that. I'm not. Never tried to be. Never suggested I was. Plenty of brothers that are far more entertaining, that know how to do that in a variety of ways. I ain't even trying to pretend I got that. I'm just using this microphone to put some ideas out in the world that I hope you might be able to use in the space you're in, wherever that is. Because I'm not really confident that that's happening to the degree I think it needs to be. So I'm adding my piece to this to help. And I'm hoping you'll do the same. So I'm saying that the second solution is to do that in the spaces you're in. And if there's no space that you're in that applies to this, put yourself in one. Coach a team. Be a big brother. Whatever it needs to be in a space where you can advocate for Black boys and men in some way, shape, or form, because nobody else is coming for us. Nobody. People are dying in the street and motherfuckers are drinking wine off of it. Nobody gives a fuck but us. Do something. The last solution is structural. This is why I'm always talking about the Black male political agenda. That's why I did the recent symposium on the Institute website. Black male politics is the answer. At the end of the day, it's not about, it doesn't have to be limited to just voting or creating a bill that hopefully will get through Congress. That's not the limitation of what politics are. It is the formation and mobilization of a block of people that are hard set on a task and are willing to collaborate and extend resources to one another to find new ways to agitate, to create opportunities. This is so nascent. This is so early in the process that I'm hesitant to even give it form, because there's so many people involved in this that can offer something, that I want to hear what those offers are so we can shape what we can do. There's possibility here. I got brothers that are reaching out to me that are college presidents, some who are doctors at medical centers. I got brothers who are social service workers, some are janitors, some are homeless. But there's resources at every level. And if you've ever seen the film Spook Who Sat by the Door, you should know what I'm talking about. I don't care where you are or what you're doing. There's always something that you can bring to bear. Might be a perspective, might be something you witnessed, might be the abilities you have, might be your training, might be your position. At the end of the day, there's always something we all can do to uplift the state we find ourselves in. And that's what I'm challenging you to do. So the 3 levels of response I said that need to at least happen, I'm not limiting it to those 3, is the personal response in our lives, even our relationships, right? The at work response and the structural response, to create a mobilized group that are willing to do whatever it takes to bring to bear and improve quality of life for Black men and boys. Sergeant Willie Pete, what's up, man? Good to see you in here. Boomer Hook, what's going on? Roger Report, good to see you in here, brother. Darius, appreciate that support. See Truth, what's up? I apologize if I missed you. There's no negative intention behind it. What's up, Broken Blade? I just need to get some words out. I'm anxious as usual to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section. Let me see. I want to make sure I didn't forget anything else, because things on my heart that just threw off my whole little plan here. So I do apologize. Shout out to Ramon for the Cash App. Appreciate that. Um, yeah. So there is one portion though I did not share with you, and that is when I was talking about the entrepreneurs. And this will be quick because I just want to make sure you carry this with you. I don't know who it might help. I don't know, you know, who might be able to use this in some kind of way. But when I was talking about the article on entrepreneurs, Black American entrepreneurs that wholly ignored Black men, I wanted to share with you what I actually wrote with it when I posted it. I said misandry can take any number of forms. One is in absentia, meaning that somebody can be misandrous toward you by ignoring you altogether, right? Meaning that Black men can be ignored altogether, and although it's a smack in the face, no one says anything. Although there are more Black male entrepreneurs, no one says anything about them, nor do they care. They only mention the numbers of Black women who, mostly college educated, own 99% of new Black businesses with one employee. But because their numbers as entrepreneurs are growing as they transition out of racist work environments and in response to recent job losses, the attention is fixated only on them, as are the new resources being extended to them. And the many and many act as if they have no male counterparts at all. Have you seen any collective calls to empower Black male entrepreneurs in any of these articles, especially by the women who are the target of these celebratory essays and who claim to be able to find, who claim to not be able to find men who can match ambitiousness or offer financial parity in relationships, right? At the end of the day, this type of bifurcated treatment will have damaging and lasting effects on the Black community. And the men who ignore this being chivalrous, believing that men shouldn't need any help, aren't helping. They drastically underestimate how much institutional support other groups of men have gotten over the centuries and continue to get. Policy, government, they continue to get. This bootstrap mentality, when added to the systemic ignoring of Black male entrepreneurs, and for that matter, Black males in education and a wide number of other fields whose low numbers predetermine their absence in such white collar bourgeois spaces, is a recipe for disaster for Black family production. Anyway, that's it. All I have to say tonight. As I said, interested to hear what you guys have to say. Hope you guys have a good night. Peace.